Hello, guys. Welcome back to our channel. This is episode number 29. Uh, not very much in a positive state of mind, to be honest, with when it comes to Indian cricket at this point in time. I think even Pawan Bhaiya pretty much resonates what I think as well. Firstly, to start with, the horrendous display at Cape Town, the result which didn't necessarily didn't go in our favor despite a first innings lead, and of course, this aftermath of Virat Kohli's uh, resignation and whatnot. So there's a lot of debate, a lot of talk. So we thought we should be talking about it in detail. So uh, episode 29, we'll talk about this the third test, the best chance we pretty much had to win in South Africa, and how we bottled up thanks to our very poor, atrocious batting display. And then, of course, in the next episode, we thought we should also be talking about the best test captain that India has had, which is Virat Kohli, and of course, he deserves a uh, probably a placeholder or maybe an episode in itself because there's so much to talk into. So, firstly, I'll welcome Pavan Bhaiya. Hello, Pavan Bhaiya. How are you doing? And of course, what do you think about the Cape Town test? Your quick thoughts.
Hi, Ravi, and hello to all our listeners as well. Yes, it's the end of an absorbing test series, I must say. Definitely better and much more engrossing than the ongoing Ashes series. But congratulations to South Africa and commiserations to India. And to sum it up nicely, I think South Africans literally played out of their skin to beat this Indian team, although it was in their own den. And once again, thwarted the dream of the Indian cricket team to win their first Test series in South Africa. And like you mentioned, many of us thought this was the best opportunity for us to win our first ever series in South Africa and complete the circle of winning Test series in all the Test playing nations. But alas, it has to wait for another time. And like you mentioned, it was the fragile Indian batting lineup again that failed to consistently put runs on the board. And they always expect their bowlers to bail them out, as has been the case overseas for the better part of the last 2 years. But this was not to be this time round. And like I mentioned, kudos to the South Africans as well. They were definitely the better team in the second and third test matches. Chased more than 200 runs in the fourth innings, which is never an easy task. And they themselves have accomplished that task only twice in their cricketing history after readmission in South Africa. So that tells the story how difficult it is to score runs in that last innings of a test match in South Africa and elsewhere all over the world as well. But kudos to that young team under the able leadership of Dean Elgar. Their batsmen stood up when they needed to, and they are the first side in the history of Test cricket to win a three-match Test series or three or more match Test series without even scoring 250 once. So never did they touch the figure of 250 in any of their batting innings, but still ended up winning the Test series. Just goes on to show how difficult it was to bat in these conditions. But some every time they were facing a difficult situation, they had somebody in their bowling lineup and uh, somebody in their batting lineup who picked up the gauntlet and provided the necessary um, moments for them that would take them over the line. And all in all, I must say, as a Test cricket fan, a fantastic result because, like I've always mentioned, that for the health of Test cricket, we need a strong South Africa, Sri Lanka, West Indies, and Pakistan. They have been in transition for far too long. You always cannot, enjoy watching Test cricket by only seeing the big three, as they say, along with New Zealand, calling the shots as far as Test cricket is concerned. And as a fan, I truly enjoyed watching the series. And as an Indian fan, again, it was bitterly disappointing for you as well, and as for me to watch the team, fall at the final hurdle because they had all the skills available in that team to beat the South African team, which was, you know, just starting and going over a transitional phase. They will again, count it as a missed opportunity. And by the next time they are on their shores, who knows? India might be a team in transition, and South Africa have got this good set of players now, and they might be even more stronger in time to come. But that's a different challenge. But all in all, they were the deserving winners of the uh, Gandhi Mandela Freedom Trophy, as it is named, and uh, that's another chapter added to a glorious Test cricketing history between both these nations.
100%. So, like while you were mentioning the fact that they didn't cross 251 once and then still managed to win the series, right? That pretty much directly talks about how badly we batted in the second innings specifically, because we were successful in getting the lead that is probably was it was tough to start with. Uh, so the next obvious question is where we went wrong, and I think you did definitely touch upon it. So what I always thought we should be talking about is uh, the action step for this. What necessarily can be done to ensure that this very attitude, or probably this very inability to perform despite the bowlers doing their job and trying to get 20 wickets, is I mean, at least the attempt was 100% there. We can't necessarily blame the bowlers much, because often, at least in the second test, I felt there could have been few tactical changes probably made by KL, wherein it was a decent number to kind of defend, but still, of course, Wanderers is still known to be a batting track. But when it came to Cape Town, even 210 also seemed to be a decent score to have, um, to start with. But I think due credit to Keegan Peterson and the way Elgar was also batted, and of course there was a burst of emotions out there on the field when a pretty obvious plum LBW call necessarily went against the favor. So I'm not necessarily saying this as an Indian cricket fan, because even the umpire Marais Erasmus also pretty much felt that okay, it was pretty impossible. That's what that those to just quote him, that was the line. So barring the controversy, keeping that aside, right? You know, it all boils down to how the batting miserably failed in the third test, so to speak. Mainly because in the third test, right, I was just doing some number crunching and I could see that Virat Kohli and Rishabh Pant, two batsmen out of the 11, I've scored 55% of the runs, and then another 40 runs were extras. So 65% of runs were either extras or were by scored by Virat and Rishabh. So the remaining nine batsmen contributed to 35%. Of course, numbers don't mean much. We can still argue. I mean, Pujara had a decent first innings, and we can talk about how Jinx has miserably failed in both. But also, what needs to be pointed out is the fact that the tail could have been more responsible, is what I felt, because having a total of 260, 270 to defend is a different task altogether, because when we started day 4 in the morning, and the ball was doing some good, there was some good amount of good movement, we always felt that okay, probably we are 50 runs short. It's a cycle that happened probably when during the World Test Championship final as well. But when a team manages to win it convincingly, we need to go back and look and say, okay, where exactly, what necessarily has gone wrong. So of course the batting has to be blamed. I mean, it's a very a blanket statement to pull off, but what else would you like to really pinpoint it?
That's a nice way you put it, Ravi, and very well summarized. And if you remember the preview that we were doing for the series, I had categorically mentioned that whichever side bats well will win the series, because both the bowling attacks looked potent enough. At that point of time, it was not yet out that Andre Nokia was out of the squad. But we had mentioned that both the bowling attacks look very good, and they should cancel out each other. So it was a question of whichever batting side comes to the party. And India were also very lucky that for once they won all the three tosses and decided to bat. And I've always believed that with the kind of bowling lineup that we have, a score of 300 at the minimum in the first innings is absolutely a must, and we will win most of the test matches. And if you see, that's what happened in the first test match. That innings by KL Rahul was the main difference. We got to 320 odd. It's a different story that we were 270 for three at the end of day one and then collapsed. But 325 for this bowling attack was, um, enough runs on the board. And then we bowled out South Africa for less than 200 in both the innings and won that test match comfortably by over 100 runs. And cut to the second and third test matches, we performed abysmally in the first innings again, scored around 250-ish in Wanderers and 220 odd in Cape Town. In spite of that, our bowlers pulled things back and we conceded a lead of only 20 odd runs in the Johannesburg test and in fact took a lead of 13 runs in the Cape Town test. And so basically the teams cancelled out each other after the end of the first innings of those test matches. It was the second innings that let us down in both the test matches. But most people would have believed that despite defending 240 at Wanderers, which we successfully did in 2017-18, and 212 in Cape Town, our bowling lineup would have been very confident of defending that. But the South Africans had different ideas. And one point I would like to clearly mention as per my analysis, the main difference was the middle order in both the teams. Because if we take it segment by segment, if you take the openers of both the sides, uh, you know, um, KL Rahul provided one defining innings in the series, and that was the main difference in that first Test match, like I mentioned earlier. And Dean Elgar, on the other hand, played one defining innings of 96 in that second Test match, and that helped South Africa win the Test match. The other two openers from both the sides, Mayank Agarwal had one decent hit in that first Test match and failed for the rest of the inning, for the rest of the series. And so did Ail Markram. Lot was expected out of him. He got the starts, but never really kicked on. And when you come to the middle order now, Pujara, Kohli, and Rahane, they all had just one substantial inning in the series. Of course, Pujara and Rahane in that second innings in Johannesburg, they scored 50s, but much more was expected out of them. You're not there in the side as leading players, leading batsmen to just score 50s. You have to take on and make those big hundreds and, you know, make the most of it when you're in. And Virat Kohli played a super innings of 79 in that first innings of the third test match. And like we were discussing after the end of the third test match, that he needed to grind it out and possibly play Virat Kohli like innings, and that's exactly what it did. Stuck it out and reached 79, and unfortunately, it was the lack of support from the other end that cut short his journey towards the 71st century. Um, so there was only one substantial innings from each of those three players. And when you compare it to the South African middle order, the likes of Keegan Peterson, revolution, absolute revelation in the series. One of the best young batsmen at this point of time. And I must say, as a cricketing fan, I really enjoyed watching him play. And it was a treat to my eyes. The time stands still when he's at the crease. Just like Rohit Sharma, he's got that extra bit to play the ball, gets into position very quickly, is very pleasing on the eye, and I think he is going to be the mainstay of South African batting for many years to come. And he had a fantastic series, were very consistent. And along with Temba Bavuma, who is an unsung hero as far as I'm concerned in the series, he was not out in the second innings of all the three test matches. Even when India won that first test match, he was the last man standing and not out. And in both those innings, in Johannesburg and Cape Town, also he was the one who scored the winning runs, and was there at the end. And he scored important 50s in the first innings of a couple of those test matches as well. And many people were skeptical about his place in the team, including myself, and why he has been handed the white ball captaincy as well. And we all know how quota politics works in the South African scheme of things. But if he continues to play this way, then I think he will definitely become one of the leading batsmen for South Africa to come. And then Rassie van der Dusen as well. He also produced the goods when the they were required. He played a substantial knock in the second innings of both Wanderers and Cape Town, and when they were chasing targets, his uh, innings held the South Africans in good stead. Again, because their targets that they were chasing were not that big, um, all they need, all they needed to do was just score good 40 50s, and that would take them over the line. And then finally coming to the wicket keepers, not much from the South African side. De Kock played just one test match, and Carl Vereen just in his early years, and he will definitely, get better at it. Versus Rishabh Pant, I think one of the best hundreds that you will ever see um, from the Indian wicketkeeper batsman. Um, with this, he has got centuries in England, Australia, and South Africa. Not many regular batsmen in India can boast of that, let alone wicket keepers. And it was his innings that kept India, in fact, in that test match. Out of a total of 198, he scored 100 and made sure that India had something to bowl at. So that was the key difference as far as I'm concerned. And like you mentioned, the tail of both the teams was hardly, a trouble for the opposition bowling side. So I think that main consistency from the middle order in the South African setup, I think, was a key difference in the series. And of course, both the bowling attacks. I would say that the South African bowling attacks was slightly better because if you see numerically as well, Rabada, Ndidi, and Marco Jansen. Again, if Keegan Peterson was the find of the series with the bat, Marco Jansen was the find of the series with the ball for South Africa. And you can only imagine with these three guys, and you add Anrik Nokia to the piece, that they have a great pace bowling attack who can serve them for many years to come because all of them are still young and have their best years to come. Kagiso Rabada might not have had a very good series as per his standards, but post that first test match, Dean Elgar spoke to him, woke him up, made him realize, possibly gave him a kick up the backside, and then you saw the best of him. And as far as the Indian bowling attack was concerned, again, Jasprit Bumrah and Shami led the way. And Shardul also was brilliant in that second test match, but to expect your bowlers to bail you out every time, when you fail with the bat is asking for too much. It was time, the batters responded as well, and that's what great teams are made of. They make sure that their batsmen, bowlers, fielders, everything comes together, and that's what makes the sides of the past like the West Indies and the Australia the great sides ever because all the pieces of the jigsaw puzzle were coming together. So I think that is for me the main difference between the two sides, the middle order batting that clinched the series in South Africa's favor.
So very well put by. I agree as well. So actually, for a fact that I've been a big supporter of Rishabh Pant, and you can call it narrative, you can call it propaganda, which have been running from probably good 3 to 4 years right now. I think he's one batsman who's pretty much got hundreds in every Sena country except New Zealand. That's a huge achievement to start with. Uh, Given for a fact that he replaced a wicketkeeper who knows never scored 100 overseas is what they like how they kind of put it. So, but having said that, due credit to, I mean, we have to talk about it of how Virat played. Has pretty much put the anchor right there, and he's played a very unconventional innings. Uh, Someone who's pretty much talked a lot about intent and everything, pointing out at a few of the players of the Indian cricket team back in New Zealand. Um, you know, it wasn't fair. I mean, it won't be fair to say that Virat didn't have intent, but yeah, at the same time, pretty much played the role he was supposed to. And of course, though he's just got runs probably limited to 20s, right? That innings was amazing too. And of course, how Rishabh from the other end went for the offensive, and had he not scored that 100, I don't know what we would have defended again. So uh, glad to see that Virat actually crossed the three-digit mark, at least in one single test. But having said that, there's a long way to go, and of course we'll talk in depth in terms of his batting and also the captaincy piece, or if actually Rishabh is a candidate for it. in the coming episode. But having said that, I thought we should be talking about how the role that Virat played in Rishabh Pant's 100 as well. So that's one thought that I had. So now coming to the next leg of the series, one thing that happened with the Test series is the fact that South Africa were not starting as favorites. Let's be honest. So this is considered to be an uh, fair to say that it's an upset, despite for a fact that India is playing an away tour. So that's kind of a pedestal or a progress that we can say that India has seen in the last few years. But having said that, I think the narrative is pretty much the same even for South Africa's ODI team. I think they still don't necessarily start as favorites. India does seem to be a better looking side on paper for sure. But having said that, conditions, toss, everything matters. It would be exciting to see what we have in store, and of course we have a new captain, the original captain who's supposed to replace the sagged captain, so to say, is not playing because of fitness issues and whatnot. Now, we have a new captain in KL Rahul, and it would be really interesting to see what he would be doing here. So, in hindsight, I mean, what I personally felt is they should have just continued with Virat as the ODI captain for this series, and then once Rohit was fit, probably that's when they should have drafted in. And of course, we can talk in lengths about how it was mismanaged. We did speak about it in the past as well. But having said that, when you kind of sack a captain, fairly successful captain, the ideal understanding is that the replacement is kind of available. And the most logical thing would have been to continue with Virat. But having said that, there's a lot of change in the way things are perceived in the last 3 4 months, and to be honest, even more so in the last 3 4 days. So, in the as part of the build up to the ODI series, what do you think would be exciting and games which are being played at PAL? So, your views there.
Yeah, it's a good series to look forward to. India be playing, a one-day series at full strength after quite a while. And I would personally say that yes, the Test series was an upset, but the one-day series starts on an even keel, and I would say it's 50-50 because South Africa has got some exciting players in the white ball format as well. And India, on the other hand, are always having one eye on that 2023 World Cup. And of course, they'll be missing their new regular white ball skipper in Rohit Sharma. But this is an opportunity for the other players to stake a claim as well. And what I would like to see is more than anything else a bit of stability in the middle order, which has been our Achilles heel for many years now in the one-day format, and it's high time that we give middle order players a substantial run at a particular number. And it will be interesting to see how India balances the side, uh, considering the absence of Ravindra Jadeja, and there is no Hardik Pandya as well, who's been robbed on form. Um, the one thing I would like to look forward to is whether they'll be willing to give somebody like a Ruturaj Gaikwad a go at the top of the order. I personally feel that he should be drafted in and played alongside Shikhar Dhawan for the opening slot. KL Rahul has done wonderfully well in the middle order in the last couple of years, so I think that is where he should be there and performing the role. Not that if Rohit Sharma is not there, he should come back and open the innings. I think it's high time that you give Ruturaj Gaikwad, who's been in sizzling form across all the tournaments, whether you have IPL or the Vijay Hazare Trophy. So if you're not going to give chance when the player is in red hot form, then when would you give him a chance? Kohli will be back at number three, and I think one day is his favorite format. Like to see KL, Shreyas Iyer, and Surya in the middle order over there. I'm not too sure if all the three can play. Maybe two out of those three can play, and then Rishabh or Ishan can be drafted in as a wicket keeper. And like I mentioned, if they decide to play somebody like a Venkatesh Iyer for that balance in the side, so that they have five bowling options, that is something they can look at. Not too sure if they will play, if they'll be comfortable playing Venkatesh Iyer as the fifth bowling option, which means he has to bowl 10 overs, which looks unlikely. He can only play the sixth bowling option as far as I'm concerned. So again, that will, tilt the balance or make it awry in some way or the other. But Ravichandran Ashwin also comes back into the one day scheme of things. I think Yuzvendra also has to finally be given a a security kind of a thing and played in the one day format. And we know the kind of damage that he did along with Kuldeep last time we were in South Africa and won that one day series for the first time 5-1. Absolutely outplaying South Africa in all the games. So they will look to get some answers and prepare for the future one day games. Although the priority will shift to the T20s very quickly, seeing the World Cup coming ahead. And on the other hand, South Africa also, like I mentioned, they've got fantastic young players, Janeman Malan, all pros, David Miller, Rassie van der Dusen is an excellent white ball player. Temba Bavuma has got a string up his stride, up his step, so he can be a handful and lead them in a way. In fact, he has released a statement that winning the series against India in the one days will be a great boost of confidence for them. So he's already thrown a gauntlet there at the Indian team. Uh, and I think it'll also be interesting to see Virat Kohli go in without that burden of captaincy after all this while, and that would just liberate himself, and let him play the way he does. And I personally, um, just want to see him score that elusive 100 uh, and make India win the series in classic Kohli style in the one day format. Uh, all in all, a short series, but like you mentioned, two one days at Pal and third one at Cape Town, all day games. So we'll not be having any sort of a day-night fixture in place over there. It'll be interesting to see how they cope up with that. And yes, I would say again 50-50, but India slight favorite, I would say at this point of time.
Certainly. So, as in South Africa's limited over squad is still a good basket where they can actually pick in. It would be a tough task to actually get their 11 as well. I mean, Janeman Malan has been all hyped. I mean, we've seen good innings from then. Rassie van der Dusen, he's an amazing limited overs player, like you rightly mentioned. Their all-rounders super house is quite good. Dwayne Pretorius can bat. If it should be seen if he can be picked. Uh, Peluqueo as well. He's a good. He's someone who can come and strike the ball hard as well. We've seen Marco Jansen's ability to stick there around, and of course the superstar of Quinton de Kock, who's part of the squad again. Not to forget David Miller. So the bowling is pretty much the same when it comes to Kagiso Rabada, Lungi Ngidi, and most likely Keshav Maharaj also might be preferred out there. So it would be interesting to see because I personally feel it's a wider basket wherein they can uh, pick in players, but of course there are a lot of permutations and combinations when it comes to South Africa, and it's not just limited to abilities, isn't it? So of course, on that note, I think uh, that's for today. I mean, with respect to the ODI series preview and what necessarily to happen in the second and third test. So, any final thoughts from your end, Baya?
Um, Nothing much, Ravi. I think we've had a good discussion. It was a nice test series to watch as a test cricketing fan. Like I mentioned, and we look forward to more such absorbing series. The better these teams play who are in transition, I think Test cricket will be a much more engrossing and watchable spectacle um, for all us Test cricket fans, and the game will be in good health. And uh, like we said, looking forward to the one day series, and hopefully India gets one trophy to get back home.
Cheers. That's it for today, guys. Thanks so much for all the support and thanks for listening. That's about it for today. And yeah, take care, everyone. Bye bye.
Thank you. Bye.